Hello, I am Grace Annan Coolcott. I'm Communications Officer for Understanding Patient Data, which is a programme based at the Wellcome Trust that aims to make the way patient data is used more visible, more understandable and more trustworthy. As part of that, we're trying to find new ways to communicate data to people. So in this video, I'll share some of what we know and I'll point you to some of the resources we have that can help you. And I think this is a really important place to start. And that's that data is not the most interesting and fun topic for most people. It's not something people think about a lot. And I think this is especially true within healthcare, where people, if they're attending their GP or hospital, they're seeking help, they're seeking care, and they may well be concerned or have lots of other things on their mind, and they absolutely are not looking for a conversation about data. It's easy to forget that when we're working in this space and we're really interested in these ideas and concepts, but I think it's an important place to start. And as one research participant said to us, we hear the word data and we think, how boring. And so that's what we're up against. That's where we're starting out. But at the same time, the way that data is used can be controversial too. So we did some research at Understanding Patient Data, looking into the way that the media covers stories about health data. And what we found was that it's the stories about risks and issues that get the most attention. And that's true both in the press and also on social media. And what's clear is that some of the biggest controversies tend to happen when people don't know what's going on. And that's because rumour and misinformation thrive in a vacuum. So it's really important that risks which could lead to controversial stories are openly recognised and transparently and proactively managed. This is hard, especially when things are changing fast, but being open about uncertainty or about what might change or about the risks is really important for building credibility and integrity. So, given that people don't think about this often and that it can raise people's concerns, finding the right time and context to explain data to people is really important. And especially because when you first tell people or first introduce the idea about how patient data is used, the first question they'll often ask is, well, hang on, why are you telling me this now? And that question is much easier to answer when the use of data is relevant to the person's context. People are also much more interested in the way that data is used when it helps them learn about their own health, care or condition. And we did some research into this working with a design agency called Camusi. And one of the really important things we found in that research was that there's only so much you can explain in one interaction, and that is dependent on the context. And also that the more detail you give, the more questions you tend to get back. So it's also really important to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask questions or to learn more. And this is also because people's levels of interest and concern about how data is used varies. So some people will just want a high-level description and some reassurance that there are safeguards in place. Other people will want to be able to delve into lots of detail and read through all the, everything and what's happening. And it's really important to cater to those different levels of interest and concern and to always offer people information to find out more. So the other important thing to consider here is that actually health data, it feels really sensitive and personal to lots of people. And so, of course, one of the first things people want to know is how is it protected? Now, the way that patient data is accessed and used in the UK is highly regulated, with a number of different safeguards in place that are both legal and institutional. And we've explained those in more detail on our website. But the collection and use of data also has some risks. And it's much better to be open about those risks and not overpromise, because people are aware of the risks around using data and what the issues can be, like data breaches, like commercial exploitation. And so because people's awareness of those issues is growing and has grown over the last few years, people tend to be really skeptical if they're not addressed openly. So we tend to say it's better to talk about the steps to safeguard data rather than to promise that data is completely secure, because there will always be some risk. The other thing that we sort of have come up against is that it's really hard to explain data sometimes without slipping into technical terms and jargon. So we did some research to try and find the best ways to explain patient data in ways that are both accurate and also accessible. And we tested what we found with members of the public and healthcare professionals. So you can find this on the research and resources section on our website. But to give you an example, the term direct care is quite often used within our sector, but it doesn't actually mean much to most people. And so it's much better in those cases to use the word individual care. We also know that testing or co-designing your communications with the audience that you're trying to reach can help you make sure that they are accessible and understandable. And finally, our last tip is to think about how you might be able to use visuals to explain some of the kind of tricky concepts involved with communicating data. So we found these to be helpful for ideas like anonymization and data security. And the example on this slide here, the spectrum of identifiability, we've called it, and we use that to help us explain anonymization. Because one of the first things people want to know about data is whether they can be identified, but it can be really hard to explain that just using words. So pictures, diagrams, animations can help. And if you take a look at our website for our content, you'll find the Data Saves Lives animations as well, which is on the left on this slide. So do please, take a look at our site for more. We've got lots of content on there for people to use in their own communications. So it's all available under a CC BY license. And of course, you're always welcome to get in touch with us if you'd like to discuss any of the ideas that we've covered here. Thanks.